Have you guys ever watched a movie that was really, really good and you said to yourself, man, that was amazing. I wish I could watch it again, but worse? Well, boy, do I have a treat for you. Hello, everyone. It's Kendall here. If you're new around here, welcome. If you're not new around here, what is up, home skillet biscuit? And happy Saturday. And today, we are talking about Oldboy. Not the good one, not the one that you would hope I'm talking about. That other one, the one that we act like doesn't exist, or if we only mention it, we mention it ironically or in jest. That one. Because I watch garbage for a living. I was reminded a few weeks back on Twitter of the existence of this version of Oldboy. Again, not the original, incredibly influential Park Chan-wook film. Who I love Park Chan-wook. I think he's amazing. And that film was an adaptation of a Japanese manga of the same name. No, I'm talking about the 2013 Oldboy, the one made by Spike Lee for some reason. Spike Lee is incredibly influential in film as well, particularly when we are talking about conversations around Black politics and America. You know, it's often satirical. He's done great work in the past. This one, not one of his best. Honestly, quite possibly his worst. Probably one of the worst movies adaptations that I've ever seen made ever. It's fucking terrible. And I, again, hate myself a little bit. Hello, if you're new around here, I'm a bit of a masochist. Hence the myriad of terrible movies that I've watched over the years. So of course, when I heard that it's like offensively bad, like so bad that it makes you angry, I had to take some time out of my busy schedule to watch that, to behold that, and to ultimately make a video about it. Hello everyone, this is Admiral Kennie, and today's video is sponsored by Lovin' Pies. Lovin' Pies is a gorgeous free-to-play mobile game that follows Amelia as she rebuilds her mom's cafe after it burned down, follows her dreams, as well as finding love. Along the way, you get to design and decorate and follow the mystery of your mom's disappearance. The game is a merge format, but it allows you to follow an interesting and unique storyline that keeps you hooked for more. There's so much to explore through the story, so much to uncover, as well as a bunch of challenges just in time for the Valentine's Day season. For instance, the Betty's Love Letter event, where you help a crazy grandma decorate for the season of romance. You can unlock romantic storylines, super sweet decorations, all while being showered with amazing rewards and surprises. So check out Lovin' Pies today with the link down below and embrace the sweetness of romance. Big thanks again to Lovin' Pies for sponsoring today's video. Now let's get on to the debauchery. If you haven't seen the original Oldboy, it is an incredibly trippy, darkly funny, very graphically violent and sexual and disturbing story of revenge. It's a revenge quest film about a man named Oldboy who gets imprisoned in a hotel room for 15 years without knowing who his captors are, why he was imprisoned, how he got there, nothing. And one day he's released and things get really, really weird as he goes on his pilgrimage of sorts or investigation of sorts to figure out, again, who put him away and why. And again, you've been warned, it's very up, like very, very up. An incredibly up movie. Very good, but incredibly up movie. I remember watching it for the first time, around the first time that I saw Ang Marupuata, or I Saw the Devil. I made a video on that as well. I'll link that somewhere. I remember it being so chaotic and such a shock to the system. And it was one of those movies that you left just feeling kind of in a daze, but in a good way. There is definitely this like, what the did I just watch? Kind of twisted genre mashup revenge film that's like kind of leaves you bewildered in a really cool way. And then if you watch it a second time, you can see all the hints that lead up to the big twist at the end. And it's this amazingly well constructed and masterful mind. It's great. I can see why particularly the film bros around me think that it's like one of the best movies ever made. It is a really good movie. I wouldn't put it up that hard, but it's a very good movie. Probably, and I do think those guys really like it because it's very violent and weird and up. Now, I was presented with a bit of a conundrum as we decided to talk about the remake of that film, right? Because that movie is, one, really good. It's a classic for a reason. And when we're talking about a remake, we're going to talk about a lot of the same story beats, a very similar twist at the end. So I do recommend, if you plan to watch the original Oldboy at all, this video will definitely spoil that. And I think it's a movie that really needs to be watched blind. So I do caution, if you do ever plan to watch it, actually, that you may want to watch it first before watching this video. If you don't plan to watch it, girl, sit down. You about to be in for a motherfucking ride, because we're talking about the remakes that takes those same story beats but makes them bad. So it'll still kind of ruin the original movie if you don't know what the spoiler is at the end. So keep that in mind. Just unfortunately, it's kind of impossible to talk about this remake without spoiling the original. So yeah, I decided to watch the original again before watching this remake because I wanted to feel the same amount of frustration and anger, honestly, that a lot of Oldboy OGs, I'm just calling it OG, a lot of OGs fans felt when they walked into this Americanized version and saw it almost parodied. That's how it felt. It felt like a joke. It felt like somebody made a movie about Oldboy without ever watching the original, and instead decided to make a movie based off of a quick cursory glance of the Wikipedia summary. And when I was going into the second movie, I didn't know, should I be comparing it to the original or should I think about it as a separate piece of art? And both of them are true. So I was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't judge it based off of how it performs next to the original. I should think of it as a, completely separate media. It is in many ways a completely separate thing to witness and behold and to digest. And then I realized after watching it, it doesn't matter. If you think of it as a standalone movie, it sucks. If you think about it as a movie compared to the original, it sucks even more. This movie, again, feels like parody. It's poorly acted. It's poorly paced, arguably racist. Everything feels like... It feels weirdly like an Austin Powers villain has started off the events of the movies, like $1 billion, which is wild because the original movie is so heavy that by the time you get to the end, it's just like, what the I've just felt so many things. Oh my God. Whereas by the end of this movie, I was like, what the I just witnessed so much and I don't care. This movie is also really up. Actually, this movie is arguably less up because it doesn't elicit any strong emotion from you. So when it gets to the ending that is supposed to be very heavy and like shocking and whatever, it just made me laugh. It made me laugh. It was very funny. And I don't think that's what they were trying to do. Again, it felt like parody. So without further ado, let's talk about Oldboy, the other one, 2013. So the film follows a guy named Joe Doucette, and it is, again, very similar to the original premise of the OG movie because we are introduced to a man who is obviously not the best. However, this movie decided to spend a little bit more time developing how our main character actually is. He's a drunk. He's belligerent. He is vastly unliked by essentially everyone in his life. He has a terrible relationship with his ex-wife and the mother of his child. So much so that he doesn't even desire coming to his child's third birthday party. He doesn't see the value in his kid's third birthday party.
3 years old. Okay, so you think she cares whether I'm there or not?
He's a raging misogynist, deeply unprofessional as well, so that misogynistic, skeezy slime ball thing will also lead into his work relationships, which up the bag for some coochie that don't want you. Girl. Really quickly within these interactions with people around him, that's when you get the sense like, oh, I'm walking into something that's really, really bad. There's a certain taste that certain movies have when you know you're about to behold something otherworldly, something accidentally delicious. And as I'm saying this, maybe if I watch this version of it as if I'm watching like a midnight movie, something like Camp, I would actually enjoy it more, because again, if I thought of it as like a accidental comedy, it's actually not that bad. If you think of it as like a sincere movie and a sincere remake, oh, I'm so sorry. But yeah, you watch these people act and you're like, what a befuddling cluster of choices were made to do this. The acting, the lines, the delivery, what they decided to use as final cuts is perplexing.
You know what, Joe? As a husband, as a father, you are a f***ing joke.
You know what? You're a bitch, Donna.
What did you say?
I said you are a f***ing bitch!
They just, I don't know. Anyway, the events of the story open in 1993. This is when, after making a complete ass of himself and making sure that we really understand where he is in his life at this point, which is drunk, he drunkenly makes his way to Chinatown, where he meets a Chinese woman speaking broken English wearing a pair of angel wings. So, if you saw the original movie, there is the opening scene with Old Jesu, who is also belligerent and having a drunken outburst at a police station. And he's complaining about how he's going to miss his child's birthday, and he wanted to give her a gift, which are angel wings. And this ends up being something really cataclysmic story-wise in that movie. It has a lot of weight. It has a lot of punch. But in this movie, it's just like a cheap nod to the original, which is something that happens over and over and over again, which again supplements that feeling I feel of this is just kind of like a parody of the original movie. Like, hey, you see it? You see the joke? You see that? We referenced it. You get it? You see the octopus? They got an octopus. Stuff like that. And then in addition to that, this movie has a very strange usage, for lack of a better word, quote unquote, of Asian people. In a weird way, this movie also acts like Asian people are like a nod to the original movie. Like, they're kind of ornamental. You'll see Asian people as this kind of like floating ornament that also performs as a nod to the original, or at least that's how I perceived it. It's racist. I don't know who the decided to do this, whose choice this was. Was it Spike Lee's? Was it the producers? Both? Maybe. I mean, later when this movie goes horribly wrong, Spike Lee has a lot to say about the input of producers and final editing that wasn't under his control. So I don't know whose decision it was to do this, but they did. So I don't know what pre-production was involved and how much say he had in that, but mess. All I'm saying is this: Asian people perform as this kind of odd, misplaced, mythical creatures, magic bearers, or caricatures. And this is distinctly different from the original movie, as it was Korean. So everyone's Korean. So for you to add Asians only in these really weird instances is certainly a choice. Take, for instance, this woman. This is the mysterious woman that seems to float around Joe as he falls into, the mysterious and confusing state of affairs of what happens throughout the movie. Because he sees her and suddenly he is whisked away and wakes up in a hotel room. Now, this movie is very inconsistent in the quality of its cinematography. One of the things about Oldboy is that the original is that it's so consistent from start to finish, such a visually stunning thing to behold. Whereas this movie is like, there's certainly moments that really stand out, some of which are quite unique even compared to the original one. And Spike Lee does have some works under his belt that like utilize a kind of stylized, semi-trippy cinematography. I'm thinking of Do the Right Thing, The Random Fisheye. So it's not like he's completely unfamiliar with, again, stylized film. But as far as like what I've seen from Spike Lee, I've never seen anything from him that was anywhere near as hyper stylized as something from Pak Chan-wook. And again, I said I don't know if I should be comparing them, but I can't help it. Like, this movie sucks. I don't know. I just feel like this movie would have been better if it really leaned into the camp. I felt like it spent a lot of time trying to be a more realistic version of the original Oldboy that does kind of exist in this weird, surreal, bizarre world. But that's the point. Whereas this movie tried to be too down to earth, but then all this bizarre is happening around it. It was just weird. But anyway, he's taken to a mysterious hotel room, and despite his best efforts, he is unable to leave. And the only thing they give him is a television that helps him denote the passage of time, and math. Of course, what else is there to do? They feed him similar things every day, most of which is Chinese takeout and vodka. And then the room fills with gas whenever they want to knock him out to do something, take his DNA for nefarious reasons to, I don't know, maybe frame him for murder of his ex-wife, even though he's nowhere to be found. You know, just stuff. Cash. It's a normal Sunday. He doesn't take that well, by the way, her dying, which makes sense. Also, him being framed for murder that he couldn't have committed. Again, makes sense. But like, the is this acting? Like it's a mess. Now, as you can imagine, given the circumstances, Joe begins to lose his mind. And monumental events pass in this kind of vague wave of his drunkenness and eating nothing but dumplings, essentially. He exercises a lot. He harms himself. And whenever he harms himself, whoever knocks him out at night refuses to let him die. They patch up his wounds if he tries to game over. He starts to lose his mind so much that he befriends a family of rats, and this is not funny. This is not funny. They it's not funny. They cook the rats and try to feed them to him. Now let me stop. Let me explain why I'm laughing, because you're like, what is wrong with you? Let me explain. I swear to God, I'm okay. It was how quickly that escalated. He sees a mama rat and her babies. He's like, oh my God, thank you for the babies. In the next frame, they done threw the cooked rats on a plate and it's like steaming. He's like, ah! And I'm just like, I'm sorry. And no one's good at what they do in this movie. So I gotta get my laughs in. Damn. Oh my God, it's his twins. He can't have All right. After 5 years doing nothing but watching television, he ends up seeing this show where someone is interviewing the daughter that he had with his ex-wife, who was adopted by a family, and her name was Mia. She now is growing up quite well with this family. She plays the cello. She seems to be like pretty well taken care of by these parents. And after seeing her, he decides to write letters to her and write down just the events of the, at this point, 5 years that he spent in confinement. He also makes a pledge to become a better person while he's in confinement so that he can come out and be a good parent for her. He also admits that he hasn't been a good parent up until this point, but he does, uphold that he did not kill her mother. And then, before you know it, 20 years have passed and Joe has been in there the entire time, and slowly but surely he's getting to the point that he's finding a way to escape. And then essentially upon escape, he wants to get revenge about any of the, again, myriad of people who don't like him that didn't like him in his past, to see who would have gone to this extent, because it seems like a bit much. There's people I'm not a fan of. This seemed like a lot of work. But okay. Eventually, he's able to make a hole in the shower tile in an effort to find a way out. And just as he's about to leave, he hears Mia on the television. They've done an update with her now. She's now an adult. And just as he's about to be free, the gas comes in, knocks him out. And when he awakens, he is actually stuck inside of a suitcase, abandoned in a field, clean shaven, along with his letters to Maya. He has sunglasses, money, and a smartphone. Now, this movie's been pretty rough, like quality-wise, up until this point. The acting's been rough. But I think from here on, things go downhill drastically, because this is kind of where the minor moments that lead to the larger story beats that we, as people familiar with the original, those are different a little bit. So we're watching a new movie in that sense, right? But all of the new aspects, or the slightly changed, revamped aspects that they did in this movie, they do categorically worse in every way possible. And they put them all together, not in a way that even adds up to a cohesive plot. It's a completely drunken cluster of foolishness, and I hate it here. So once out of the hotel for the first time in 20 years, he has very little reaction to that. He goes chasing after the woman that I presume he thinks is the woman that trapped him into the hotel, but it's kind of just weird following a random Asian woman. Also, they really needed to make sure we understood that she was Asian outside of just looking at her. So she had to walk around with her Japanese umbrella wearing a kimono. They can't figure out which Asian they're referring to. I just realized that. But he goes chasing after this woman. So obviously people playing soccer in the field see him, this random, very strange looking man chasing after a small Asian woman. And so they're like, hey, back up, leave her alone. And this, I don't know what I'm supposed to feel about this, because I think as an audience participant, I'm supposed to be excited that he brings the pain. But this scene is so stupid and very befuddling and truly confusing. And he just runs away from that interaction and goes to harass other people. But when you watch a random fight scene in the original movie, the whole movie is very tongue-in-cheek. So like, even if it's kind of asinine, it's supposed to be because the whole movie kind of is. But whereas this movie tries to be a serious movie, and that's where it fails. Yeah. Anyway, he then goes up to a random unhoused man who was standing in line for charity medical care because he had the yellow umbrella that she was holding. And this is where, while harassing this random man, he meets a woman, a nurse named Marie, who is played by Elizabeth Olsen. This is a blemish on your background, baby, but you did fine. You came above this. That's good for you. We would just, delete this from the old resume. And she meets Joe, and with no real prompting at all, not even like some la 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 music like when they see each other for the first time, I'm supposed to think that this like 60-year-old man and this 23-year-old woman are just innately drawn to each other, even while he's mid assaulting a dude, a homeless man in the line looking for some help. She's just weirdly drawn to Joe for some reason. But she's like, if you need any help, I'll help you. And so he's like, oh, okay. And so he leaves. He leaves off to find his friend Chucky. Lucky for him, Chucky immediately believes his incredibly hard to believe story of being trapped up for 20 years in a random hotel room by a mysterious man. But lucky him, he does. And at that moment, Joe gets a call from an unknown number, an invisible man. The man is British and really cartoonishly evil, a Batman villain of sorts. He speaks in riddles and proposes a challenge unto Joe, which is figure out who I am and why I hate you.
There's more coming. A formal proposal.
So thus, Joe and Chucky start on their research of looking into, again, the very long list of people that don't like Joe for very valid reasons. Crossing out people who are unlikely to be the guy, people that are, dead. People that just like, I don't see him putting that much work into it. But Joe isn't really able to sustain his research because he's been in a hotel room with no direct sunlight for 20 years. This man is vitamin deficient. So he ends up passing out. And for some reason, Chucky's like, let me call this random nurse named Marie. We need the plot to move. Anyway, so she comes over and takes care of him. And while he's knocked out, she reads through all his letters. Nosy. And we watch as she reads, and it's so funny because it's almost, again, parody of itself. They fade the time of her reading, and she reads off this novel of how he's been in captivity. And I can't explain it, but it's so funny, Doc.
I intend to prove my love for you. To do this, I must find the man who put me here. I am your father. Now it is my duty. Now it is my responsibility to take care of you, to love you. Mia, please give me that chance. The world can be a cold, ugly place, and people can be cruel and deceitful, but never let that change who you are. One day, I will be there to share it with you.
But this, for some reason, is what draws her closer to this man. She's like, I believe you for some reason, even though, again, he's really unpleasant. So I don't know why she's like really into him, but he's like, I'm turning over a new leaf, theoretically, even though I'm still terrible. But she, again, unprompted says, I want to help you clear your name that you didn't murder your ex-wife. Okay. Also, I'm going to help you on the journey of figuring out who did this to you and why. Okay. So they start their journey by going to a random Chinese restaurant. I'm sorry. It's not funny. It is bad. It's awful because he wants to go around tasting to find the restaurant where he used to eat the dumplings from and didn't like them. They go from restaurant to restaurant, tasting dumplings, trying to figure out which ones were the ones that he had at the hotel. And around this time, I started to really hone in on where this, like, outside of like the bad directing pacing and the bad choices and the bad editing of like everything. I started to notice that this movie is particularly awkward compared to the original because there is a noticeable lack of voiceover. So we're just watching a dude do things and there's nothing there to supplement and fill in the gap. So there's just long moments of him just doing weird. And if you, again, didn't see the original, a lot of it, you may not even know why he's doing it. It's just watching a dude eating dumplings as dramatic music plays in the background. And again, accidentally very, very funny. But anyway, eventually he gets to the place that is where he believes the dumplings are from. And the reason he knows this is not by tasting the dumplings, though he does taste them. He reaches this conclusion because he sees a guy get a really big order of dumplings. And apparently can't do that. He's like, can't do catering. He must be just such a suspicious. So he decides to chase after this man who got Chinese catering, God forbid. And he decides to steal a hammer from a random woman, attack a guy who was going to deliver food from that restaurant so he can steal his bike and chase after the dude that just bought some food for some reason. How dare he? But lucky him, this is a movie, so he follows him to a warehouse, hammer in hand. Good thing he has a weapon. And with no evidence at all, he just kills two Oh my God. And it's like, one, so much for turning over a new leaf, my. And two, we're doing all this to prove that you're not a rabid murderer and you just murked two with no evidence that this is the place to lock you up. Anyway, Samuel L. Jackson is there. Speaking of angry, he's the head of security at this like secret establishment where they lock people up. And Samuel L. Jackson does as you'd imagine Samuel L. Jackson does. But his character, I don't even know what his name is. It doesn't matter. He's Samuel L. Jackson. He looks over the cameras of people who have been confined to these hotel rooms. And luckily, Joe is there to try to torture some information out of him. He does this by cutting chunks of skin off of his neck. And again, this movie wasn't supposed to be funny, I don't think. I don't know. But it was hilarious, but not in a laughing with it type of way. It was definitely laughing at. Oh, mother. But after torturing him for a bit, Samuel L. Jackson directs him to look at the tapes in the cabinet. And this is where he overhears the man that hired Samuel L. Jackson to kidnap him. The tape shows that the invisible man that called him scheduled for Joe to be in holding for 20 years, but the tape doesn't say why. But before he could get more information, his henchmen come in and we have the fight. Now again, for those of you that are familiar with the original, then you know the very famous like 4-minute long single shot like side scroller fight scene in the original Oldboy. It's very iconic. It's incredibly wildly choreographed, but also oddly slapsticky funny and also really impressive as a fight in general. And again, it fits the overall kind of darkly comedic tones up until this point of the movie. So it's not like the slapstickiness of it fits and it still feels very cohesive. But when it comes to this, it's just confusing. Like, why? I guess I'll give it his chops for attempting to do the single shot thing, but there is a cut in it and it kind of takes the fun away in the technical sense. But also it just doesn't hit. You get it hit the way the other one did. I find that the shots are like oddly too dynamic for this. There's something cartoonish about the side scroller thing. So why are we doing like other levels? I don't know. It's just weird and misplaced. Not my eye glazing over. Is my contact shifting? Jesus. But yeah, it's dumb. But he gets stabbed in the back from the tussle, even though he's able to get away. But he passes out outside of the warehouse and is saved in a sense by the dude with the accent. Invisible Man, and they throw him outside of Chucky's shop. Meanwhile, Marie is researching Joe and the article about how he killed his wife, and she real trusting. I don't know. And that's when Chucky calls and tells her that Joe has been stabbed, so she comes to help him. Again, why does he keep calling Marie? Why don't you call like actual like a hospital? Anyway, and I get for the point of the movie, but like this just is stupid. Now, we do learn a little bit more about Marie from a fellow colleague, another doctor that she brings with her to help Joe. They used to date, but stayed friends / colleagues. So he seems to be a bit concerned about her growing infatuation with Joe. It would seem that Marie had a background of addiction and also just a general tendency to love trying to heal broken men. And so naturally, of course, when she meets him, the guy that was trapped in a hotel room for 20 years and reappears on a murder vendetta after being framed, supposedly, you just believe that, you real trust in being framed of murdering his ex-wife. She's like, yeah, I definitely want some time with that. But anyway, he's sitting in Chucky's bar and he gets a call from the Invisible Man. And when he answers it, he doesn't say anything. So he returns the call. And that's when he realized that the Invisible Man is actually in the bar already. And it's this dork. I don't know how I'm supposed to feel about an unironic bad guy looking like, again, a costume of a bad guy. He has greased up black hair and an awkwardly thin mustache and a stilted posh accent that only speaks in bad guy isms.
Answer 2 questions.
Feels like an SNL sketch. What the is this? And of course, Joe was a little upset, so he immediately tries to attack him. And that's when he's pushed off by one of his guards. And he says that if he were here to kill him, he would have died long ago. I wouldn't have locked you up for 20 years. And if you do kill me, then you'll never know why I did that. He also claims to have his daughter, Maya, and threatens to kill her. So you're in a bit of a pickle. He says, I'm here to give you a proposition, a challenge, if you will. If you accept and succeed, Invisible Man will give him the video of Invisible Man and murdering his ex-wife, his handwritten confession to the murder, $10 million in diamonds, and he will shoot himself in the face. Talk about a grand prize. Joe has to answer 2 questions within an allotted amount of time. 1, who is this man? Who is the Invisible Man? And 2, why did he imprison you? But if he loses or refuses to accept, he's gonna kill his daughter and Marie. So of course he accepts, because what else is he supposed to do? And rushes over to Marie, where he finds that Samuel and his people was trying to attack her. So he goes in, he's upset, but that's a lot of so they put him down and they about to kill him. And here comes Mr. English calling bling, bling, bling. And he's like, don't hurt him. Don't do anything to him. And I'll give you a bunch of money. And so they said, okay, well, it. I guess we'll take the money. And they left. Marie, traumatized because she was just nearly attacked. You know, she's not doing great. Everyone's just having a really bad day. But Mr. English posh Mr. Mustache has a camera in Marie's house and is watching whatever that takes place. And we notice that he has a large scar on his chest, Mr. English. Mr. Dolly Mustache. That's who he looked like. My look like Dolly. Looking real surreal. But he watches as she decides that she wants to leave her place because she doesn't feel safe anymore for obvious reasons. And just then, Joe gets a call from the Invisible Man, and he notices that every time he calls, the same music plays. So she Shazams the music to figure out where the music is from. Hey, we love a sponsor. It's an anthem to a private school, one that Joe went to. So he ventures to find the woman who is the headmistress of the private school. And during the ride to find her, they have an incredibly awkward conversation that I guess is supposed to be romantic. I know. But Marie goes to the headmistress, claiming to be a part of the Innocent Project, looking to clear Joe's name. And while they talk, Joe breaks in and tries to find any clues about who could have been the person at the school that would be very upset with him. That's where he finds in the yearbook a boy named Adrian that vaguely resembles Mr. Mustache. They then decide to go to the quote-unquote abandoned school that has a security guard for some reason. Real abandoned. Didn't think that through. But they decide because there is a security guard there at the abandoned school, they'll have to come back later that night instead of in the daytime hours. So in the meantime, they send a photo of Adrian to Chucky, who also went to the school, and he doesn't recognize him. Then Marie and Joe have sex randomly. There's no real build up to this. They just start a and Mr. Posh seems particularly delighted or in awe of that on his big screen watching people. He's a weirdo. After some mild research, Chucky realizes that the Adrian guy is the brother to a girl from their school that died. Right. And this seems to make Chucky realize what is all going on. So he calls Joe and he's like, this is about the whore, quote unquote, the whore. And Mr. Posh, or Adrian, that I'll refer to him henceforth because we know his name is Adrian. He, of course, has their phone bug and he's like, oh, I'm a this dude up, or oh, I'm going to I'm going to enjoy this guy up. With a pinky. Also, why does he hold a phone like that? dork. Anyway, so Adrian's upset. So he goes to Chucky, pays him a visit, chokes him to death. Okay. They go back to the school at night like they were going to. And this is where they find information about Adrian and his sister. This sparks his memory, and he remembers that he would harass and bully her. Joe would harass and bully Adrian's sister when they were kids. He would steal her panties when she was going to the laundry room, mock her in front of all of their peers. And the final straw of sorts was when he discovered her having very loud, like comedically loud sex in a green room. Like, ugh, awful. And then next thing you know, he's reading an article about how she was killed in a double murder suicide. Hey, things just go from worse to worser. And within that, there was only one surviving person of the family who was left seriously injured. And we can deduce that that was Adrian. But a new tidbit of information that we do learn was that the man in the garden that she was having sex with was her father. Ayo. And now I'm mad because ew, gross. But also, in retrospect, it makes the greenhouse sex scene less funny. Damn, womp womp. And I was f***ed up. Now I can't laugh about it. He was having a seizure and I was like, what the f***? He was having sex sound like he was getting electrocuted, and that was funny until I realized it's traumatic. Damn. Anyway, they leave the school and find a box with a tongue in it. Whose tongue is that? Oh, Chucky's? They never explain who tongue that is, so I guess it's Chucky's. But that's also a callback to the original If You Know, You Know. There's just a bunch of If You Know, You Know moments at this point. Now, I completely forgot about this. So Marie's crying. She's like, oh my God, don't go. Oh my God. But like, what choice does he have? Like, what is he supposed to do? So he kisses her and leaves with about 45 minutes left to go to Adrian with the answers to his questions. He goes to his penthouse, fights the bodyguard. She dies very anticlimactically too. It was like 12 seconds. Like, what the f***? So much for your bodyguard. And Adrian shows Mia tied up, his daughter, tied up on the monitor, and he's like, he will not release her until he hears the answers to his questions. And so he answers, you are Adrian, blah, 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 whatever his last name. And you trapped him because Joe told everyone at the school that I saw your sister in the greenhouse and spread the rumor that she was a hoe. But I didn't know that she was your daddy until today. Sorry. So after everyone found out about her having sex, they didn't even know it was her daddy. They moved to Luxembourg, but the news apparently still followed them there as well. And so Adrian, who still reveres his father and thinks of him as a great man,
He will always be a great man.
was heartbroken, but weirdly understanding when his father killed his mother, his sister, and tried to kill him and then blew his own head off. I will say that scene, it's not that there wasn't other violence in this movie, but that was particularly like, ew, gooey. Sorry. But Adrian survives, obviously. As we're listening to him kind of recount his sadness about the whole experience, there is this obviously confusing conclusion that he reached, which isn't like, yeah, it's f***ed up that my dad was abusing my sister. He's instead like, that's the way that my dad showed his family love, because we was too. He all of us, which is it's not funny. Why am I saying it like that? I'm so uncomfortable. That was just, they just kept it in the family. Sorry, I'm so uncomfortable. Oh my God. That was just what their family was into, and you just didn't understand, and nobody understood the way that they showed love or some shit. I'm gonna need a minute. Let's put a mid-roll in there. Jesus. All right, we're back. Now that Joe has won the wager, Joe wants to see Mia, obviously. And so Adrian brings him to see her and says along the way, Joe, you never asked the most important question, which was, why did I let you go? This is when he then reveals the big reveal. Shocker. The whole like incest family thing was not the big reveal. The big reveal instead is that Adrian was the producer of the show that interviewed Mia and followed up on Joe's case throughout the years. That show was a show that was only played on the TV in the hotel that Joe was held at. And come to find out, Mia is an actress. She is not his real daughter. His real daughter, who he had he vaguely said that he pulled the strings to make sure that she became a certain type of person who would help a broken man like him, which doesn't make sense, but that's the least of the issues here. It's Marie. Joe f***ed his own daughter. Yeah. I'm sorry if you didn't see the original movie, so you didn't see that coming, but because this movie is so dumb, I can't believe I'm saying this, I don't care. But he had him locked up for 20 years just so he could do this incredibly annoying long con. He gets his nemesis to f*** his own daughter. And then he's like, I finished my purpose. I wanted you to feel how I felt. I wanted you to feel what it was like to lose what I lost. And then he shoots himself in the face. Now, I just have to bemoan this because again, spoiler, in the original movie, the ending is that Jesus did accidentally sleep with his daughter. But when we get there, the movie is so, by that point, you're pulled so tight by the suspense of the movie. It's built up that rage, that desperation, that confusion, that humiliation. At that moment, Jesus is so debased. He's literally barking like a dog, pleading for forgiveness, begging, licking his shoe. Like he's been so whittled down to nothingness, just a shell. And this is such a devastating and gripping way to destroy him. This was funny. And I don't know what that means about me. I don't know what that says about me. But he literally, when he was like, I've done it, I was like, what the is this? Again, it feels like a parody. And then when he shoot himself, I laugh too. But I laugh at a lot of people dying in these movies. I'm sorry. But yeah, he could go. Because like, once he was gone, I was like, okay, crazy ass. And so now, Joe leaves Marie to never see her again. But he gives her a letter basically saying, you know, here's the gift. Well, he doesn't tell her that he's her father, because that, well, like, why is her life getting ruined by that? Like, damn, she ain't need to know that. He gives her the gift that he bought on her 3rd birthday in the beginning of the movie, which is a little rubber ducky Buddha. He also gives her the diamonds that he got for quote unquote winning the trial. And the movie ends with him going back to the hotel for some reason. And he smiles. I don't know, satisfied. I don't know what the happened. And that's the end of the movie. Baby, that was a mess. Left me befuddled and not in the way that it was supposed to. It's bad, and not, again, because it's up, because the original movie, some of how we got to the end is very different, and the ending itself of him like returning to the hotel is completely different in the original movie, and I'm not going to spoil that because that ending is, again, it's one of those things that like leave you just like, oh my God, in awe. But this was so bad that I just couldn't accept that it's bad. I needed to know why. I needed answers, because what the how did you leave original Oldboy and saying, I could make this again and way worse. Let's do that. I'm like, how did we get here? I need to know. So I did a quick, not too invested research. Like logistically, why was this like this? And apparently there was a lot of shifting, moving parts about directors, picking different leads, picking different, all types of stuff. But when it all came down to it, Spike Lee's biggest complaint, and seems to be his major reason for why the movie came out like that, was that the producers of the movie wouldn't let him do the entire full length of the movie that he planned to do. Apparently, the original remake was supposed to be 140 minutes, and the producers would not let it go out that long and instead edited off 35 minutes. That's a lot of movie you took out. And this was a thing that confused and frustrated a lot of people, including the lead, Brolin. What is his first name? He do better stuff than this now. But Spike Lee also mentioned that one of the cuts was within the single shot famous fight scene, and he seemed to be incredibly frustrated by that. He's like, that is the scene. The scene is one shot. That's why it's iconic. What do you mean you cut the scene? There's a cut in it. And he was very frustrated by that. It does make me wonder what the unedited movie would have been like. I did find a clip of the unedited hallway scene that was in the Spike Lee version, and admittedly it is better than what it was in the movie, but it still didn't look great. I don't know. I do think that the movie would have been better than this if they would have kept the 35 minutes, and it wouldn't have been this absolute murder, complete defilement of a great movie. And then beyond it being just edited to high hell, this version of the movie treats the audience like we're stupid, and it's insulting, and it's exhausting. There's like scenes where he's literally screaming out what's happening. He's like, I'm drunk, I'm in a hotel. It's this like horrible, embarrassing oversimplification of the movie in the sense that it's so pandering. It makes it sound like we're too stupid to understand the original movie, and we don't have the attention span to watch the original movie, so let's give them a worse, shorter version that's in English, and anything that they don't get because they'd have to think just a little bit outside of the box, we'll feed it to them. So Josh Brolin is his name. Also, this is just a nitpick. Why is Adrian British? No one ever explained that. I know it's a nitpick, but it's f***ing dumb. Just because he's a bad guy doesn't mean he suddenly turns British. But anyway, I don't know how to be mad at this movie or who to blame. There's a part of me, again, that wants to reframe it in my head as a parody and maybe a comedy in its entirety, and maybe I can sleep well at night. But also, another part of me just wants to act like it doesn't exist and never acknowledge it again. And I do feel like the majority of people that I know who know that there's two versions elect to do that. So perhaps I shall do the same. But that is ultimately Oldboy 2013. I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I don't know how to watch garbage and keep it to myself. So I wouldn't be who I am if I did that, baby. I have to, again, a little bit of masochism, a little bit of sadism. It's what keeps the world a-spinning. Anyway, if you like this video, feel free to like this video. Follow me on all my social media, Instagram and Twitter, both of which are KennieJD. Check me out. I'm all over the place. Twitter, Connect the Dots podcast. I'm out here.
In Staten Island and Brooklyn.
Staten Island is not even a country.
I'm slowly learning that like the boroughs are kind of like astrology.
Yeah, we've been talking that.
I don't really I immediately feel like
I woke up in Brooklyn today.
All right, I'm gonna go to bed. It's midnight. Peace.